Okay, today's topic for discussion is equine strangles. At this time, we have been taught most of the diseases of horse, all viral disease you have been taught, one bacterial disease, and it is the other and probably the last bacterial horse disease that has to be taught to you. This time you will finish your all the disease of horse. So this disease is called as strangles in horses, in equines. It is not a new disease. At one time, when there was not a proper treatment for this disease, uh, the affected horse developed a swelling in their throat region, and due to that, there was obstruction in the airway in the horses, and that causes strained breathing in them. So from there, the term strangles has been taken. I mean to say, strangles literally means strained breathing, which was due to obstruction in the airway of horses by swelling of the throat region and the submandibular region, which was highly swollen, and also it was indurated. So from there, this term has taken strangles, which basically means obstruction of the airway. Other synonym for this disease is equine distemper, and also it is called as adenitis equorum. So, so today we will deal regarding introduction of the disease, uh, animals which are affected by strangles, the mechanism of their transmission, route of entry, pathogenetic mechanism, different signs and symptoms, clinical pathology and necropsy findings, and at last we will deal with the discussion, diagnosis. So regarding introduction, a simple definition is, as you can see, it is an infectious contagious disease of equine family, which is characterized by abscess formation in the lymphoid tissue, and that is in the upper respiratory tract. Important point is that it did not involve lower respiratory tract or lungs. It is restricted in the upper respiratory tract and is a bacterial disease caused by Streptococcus equi subspecies equi. So we can say strangle is a respiratory illness in horses. It is a respiratory illness in horses, and it causes purulent lymphadenitis, lymphangitis, pharyngitis, tonsillitis, all that is related to head region of the horse. Another thing is that this bacteria, this bacteria, as you know, is gram positive, and Streptococcus bacteria are further subdivided on the basis of group specific antigens by Lansfield. So this bacteria belongs to type C. According to Lansfield grouping, this bacteria belongs to type C. So the etiological agent is basically Streptococcus equi subspecies type equi type C, uh, which is a gram-positive bacteria, and it is also a facultative intracellular bacteria at the same time. Okay. So as I said that it is known for causing purulent condition, particularly in the head region. That is lymphadenitis, pharyngitis, tonsillitis. So, after this brief introduction, we should move to how whom it affect. So, the bacteria Streptococcus equi is adapted to only equidae family, that is horses, donkeys, and mules. Very rare it causes any infection in other animals. It is restricted to equidae family, not as glanders, and it is also not genotypic, as you know. Second thing, it is more effectively causing disease in the young horses between up to 5 year of age. Up to 5 year of age, it is more susceptible. Horses are more susceptible, but remember, it can cause disease at any age. Any age horse can be affected if their immune system is slightly less or weakened. Then it can affect any age. Usually, it is a disease of young horse between 1 to 5 years. Regarding transmission, very simple. It can be transmitted by direct contact. By direct contact, I means affected or recovering or latent uh, horses, which are apparently seems to be normal or they are even affected, those horses excrete the bacteria in their nasal discharges, and by nose to nose contact and also by coughing, they can transmit the disease to the nearby horses. So by direct contact, it can be transmitted. Along with direct contact, it can also be transmitted by indirect contact. By indirect contact, I mean to say those human personnels which are handling the uh, horses or those utensils, feeding utensils or clothings which are being shared by different horses in a herd or even sharing the same house. So indirectly by the infected and water contaminated with the nasal discharge by the handlers, by the utensils, feeding utensils, watering utensils, by the clothing, by sharing the same common uh, housing, they can be other horses can be also affected from the um, diseased animals. And the bacteria usually enters inside the body through inhalation. So inhalation is a major route. However, ingestion
Sandeep,
can
my mute karo.
also occur. Inhalation is the major route. So the most important part is this pathogenesis. To understand this pathogenesis, I've taken a photograph from the internet. It can properly tell you about the pathogenesis of this bacteria. So first thing, this bacteria is not a normal inhabitant of the
सर
other.
आपकी आवाज रिपीट हो रही है.
Hello. So I was telling that this bacteria is not a normal inhabitant of the respiratory tract. ये bacteria usually body में नहीं पाए जाते. They enter from affected horses. So after entering through inhalation, basically through inhalation route, these bacteria get attached with the cells of the mucosa of the uh, oral cavity, particularly these lingual tonsils, these palatine tonsils. There they get attached. How they get attached, I will talk to you later. In very summary, this flow chart tells that after the entry of the pathogens, they get attached with the tonsils and the nearby lymph nodes of the oral cavity. From there, the bacteria drain to the adjoining lymph nodes, particularly the submandibular lymph nodes and the suprapharyngeal lymph nodes, where they cause abscession, they grow, multiply, and during this time, they escape killing immune system. They escape the body immune system due to presence of some virulence factors like you can see hyaluronic acid capsule or M protein or MAC proteins are there. There are other also proteins. I will deal it in the next slide. So they are white being killed by the phagocytic cells like neutrophils or macrophages due to presence of certain virulence factors. Uh, Along with these bacterial enzymes like streptolysin and streptokinase are important for formation of abscess. You know this bacteria is pyogenic, that is they cause abscess formation. This bacteria is also pyrogenic, that is they cause high fever. So here the pyogenic nature of this bacteria is due to the presence of bacterial enzyme which is called as streptolysin or streptokinase. And this is the common pathogenesis. Up to the oral cavity is it is the usual strangle. The most common strangles that we deal, it is restricted to the oral cavity. But sometimes complication occurs, and from there the bacteria can pass to other lymph nodes, or either other organs also, even kidney, liver, spleen, lungs, heart, even brain. It can pass to other organs also and other lymph nodes also. So this is extra complication. This is the not usual phenomena of its pathogenesis. Up to oral cavity, up to the head region, it is the usual pathogenic mechanism. But it can even affect to different organs, and in this case, it is better called as bastard strangles, which is very severe form. And usually in this case, mortality is very little, not even 10%, very little mortality. But when complication like busted strangles occurs, then the mortality rate increases highly. It is also not a septicemic disease. Rarely it causes septicemia. So in this photograph, you can see the basic role of the bacteria is limited to the oral cavity, to the head region, to the throat region, adjoining lymph nodes, but it can also affect the other organs as well. So to understand this pathogenesis, I will take another slide. So what I have said, that this bacteria attached with the lingual and palatine tonsils. Next, this bacteria from the tonsil region, from the oral mucosa region, can gain access to the local lymphatics and the local lymph nodes like submandibular lymph nodes, retropharyngeal lymph nodes, where they replicate, and after replication, there are chances that metastasis can occur and they can spread to other organs, other visceral organs through blood or by lymph vessels. So metastasis can occur. It is not the usual route. If it occurs, then whole body visceral organs can be affected. So as I was telling, for this mechanism, bacteria have certain not actually it has multiple virulence factors which contribute to their pathogenicity. So first is uh, lipoteichoic, lipoteichoic acid. As you know, this molecule has the affinity to bind with the extracellular matrix of the host cell, and so it helps in localization and invading of the bacteria where it is causing effect. Lipoteichic acid basically help in invading and localization by binding with the extracellular matrix like laminin of the host cell. Second, second valence factor is M protein or SEM protein. It can also be written as simple M protein. Property is it is fibrinogen binding protein. What does it means? It means that this protein has the ability to destroy the alternate pathway of complement activation. It does not allow the immune system of the host to develop complement activation through alternate pathway. Okay, and it also does not allow opsonization of the bacteria so that it can be recognized by the phagocytic cells. So it can destroy the C3b like complements which act as opsonins. It also do not allow the activation of the alternate complement pathway. Third valence factor is C5a peptidase. As you know, this is a chemotactic, a chemokinetic role. This complement plays C5a, C3a, C4a are chemotactic agents of the complement system. So it has a protease which can destroy this C5a complement. Another thing is hyaluronic acid capsule. That is on their capsules are present hyaluronic acid. And hyaluronic acid and bacteria are both negative charge, so they repel the phagocytic cells and do not allow phagocytosis. Next is MAC protein. This is less studied protein. We don't know much about its virulence, but research has shown that it acts as anti-immunoglobulin G. I mean to say it acts against the antibody. It kills the antibody which are being formed against the bacteria. Next is pyrogenic exotoxins. So since it is a gram positive, you know they will secrete exotoxins. So one of the important exotoxins is pyrogenic, and it is very simple that pyrogenic molecules causes fever, high fever. Next is pyogenic exotoxins. So this pyogenic means they create acute inflammatory response. So what will happen? More and more neutrophil will accumulate, recruit at the site, and they will eventually die. And these dead neutrophils are called as pus cells. That is why pus formation occurs. Degenerated dead neutrophils with time get accumulated at the site and causes pus formation. And these two enzymes, streptolysin S and streptokinase, these are two proteins, two enzymes from the bacteria, which further helps in abscess formation and plus lysis of the host cells, leading to more destruction of the affected area. There are also certain factors which I don't think it is necessary to deal here, like some cytokines. So overall, these 8 or 9 types of virulence factor, multiple virulence factor lead to different type of pathogenicity and they contribute in their pathogenicity. Now I will talk about the signs and symptoms of the disease. This simple picture can tell you what are the symptoms basically. So there is high fever. Fever is very high. Normally about 4 degree Fahrenheit increase in the normal body temperature. The temperature increases about with about 4 to 6 degree Fahrenheit. Discharges from the nasal cavity, which is greenish yellow and mucoid nature. It can also be mucopurulent. It can be mucoid or mucopurulent. Color is greenish yellow. Coughing, wet coughing, anaerotic, depressed, plus you can see there is written raspy rapid breathing. It means raspy rapid breathing means this is important. Raspy means a change in the normal sound nature of the horse, and strained breathing, as I was telling, due to accumulation of fluid in the throat cavity, the horse is bound to breathe labored breathing, strained breathing. Uh, Also, there is swelling along the lower jaw. So these are the common symptoms which you can see in an affected horse. Other than this, you can see that the lymph nodes of the head region around the throats are highly swollen lymph nodes. And due to formation of pus, the pus here is always thick and creamy. It should be noted. The color of pus is light yellow and it is very thick. They drain from these lymph nodes exterior to the body, outside the body cavity, and it can be easily visualized. Draining ropey pus coming outside from the lymph nodes of the head area. Second thing is that horse, when got affected with their retropharyngeal lymph nodes, then their difficulty increases. So they have more difficulty in swelling. And I should also tell here that when these retropharyngeal lymph nodes burst and release their abscess, the pus material can even go to the lungs, leading to severe pneumonic form. So this was the common symptom which usually seen in affected horses. But in old animals, which have gained some sort of immunity, these symptoms are very mild in nature. They may not show so severe form of the condition. Some of the photographs here depicts the story of sign and symptoms. You can see this thick yellow, uh, thick yellow nasal discharge. The color is always creamy and it is thick in nature. In this picture, you can see here. All the lymph nodes of the head region are discharging pus, have ruptured, have swollen, and this is the picture which exactly what a strangles mean. Strained breathing due to swelling in their throat region. It has difficulty in swelling, severe difficulty in respiration. So it is taking strained breathing, from where the term strangulation is taken. In this photograph, there is swelling in the throat region. You can also see swelling in the throat region, drainage of abscess, lymph node pus from here, severe swelling in the submandibular area. Here swelling was in the throat region. Here swelling is in the submandibular region. And see this beautiful picture, the pus, ropey, thick, rope-like pus draining from the uh, throat area lymph node. This pus, thick, creamy pus. Here you can also see the nature of the pus. It is always creamy, it is always thick, and after rupture of the lymph nodes, they are drained outside. So I was talking about the normal, usual symptoms of the strangles. Now, sometimes in chronic form or during recovery also, some complications occur in the process, and these are very important for discussion. The first complication is bastard strangles. As I was telling, this is the disseminated form of the strangle. When the bacteria uh, disseminate to the different body organs, any visceral organs, even the brain, and all the lymph nodes, any lymph nodes of the body. When all of them are being affected, it causes immediate death, and it is very severe condition, and this condition is called as bastard strangles. So what is bastard strangles? It is a dissemination of the bacteria and its affection to the different visceral organs and the different lymph nodes of the body. Severe condition. Next is purpura hemorrhagica. So you must be knowing this term. What is this? This is a widespread pinpoint or ecchymotic hemorrhages all over the body. Any condition which causes uh, vasculitis, aseptic vasculitis leading to widespread pinpoint or ecchymotic hemorrhages all over the body is called as purpura hemorrhagica, and it is basically immune mediated. some of the streptococcal proteins become sensitive, and the host immune system start acting against it, and these immune complex get precipitated over the blood vessels and causes aseptic vasculitis and hemorrhages. So all over the body, any organ, you can see a small or slightly large hemorrhages. And not only hemorrhages, in severe cases, you'll see that exudation of the serum, what you call it, sepsis or exudation of the serum from that affected limbs or any organ where this purpura hemorrhagica is being evidenced, you'll see that there is sepsis, exudation of the serum, and also sloughing of the skin, leading to hemorrhages, leading to ulceration. So the condition of purpura hemorrhagica varies. It can be mild, it can be severe enough to cause death of the horses. Next is guttural pouch empyema. So you know that these guttural pouch are nothing but ventral diverticulum of the eustachian tube. That eustachian tube which connect the pharynx with the middle ear, there is a vertical diverticulum, mucus containing vertical diverticulum in horses, peculiar feature of horses near about the ears. Uh, it is found. Guttural pouch presence is normal. In this condition, due to rupture of some adjoining lymph nodes, pus gain entry in this pouch and it is filled with pus. At that condition, it is called as guttural pouch pyema. I mean to say pus filled guttural pouch is called as guttural pouch pyema. Other than this, these three are most important, but there are also other complications like myocarditis. The heart get involved. Even there can be anemia. Anemia is also a feature of complicated strangles. Also, some other problems like tissue cellulitis. I mean, tissue inflammation. Cellulitis can also occur. So there are just other problems which can also occur other than this buster strangles, purpura hemorrhagica, and guttural pouch empyema. At least you should be well acquainted with these three complications. And myocarditis, I was also telling, it is also finding in complicated case, even anemia, you can see. These are some picture. As I was telling that in bastard strangles, brain thou rare can be affected. And this is a picture of brain where pus is, you can see the pus formation in the brain. And when this pus ruptures, it causes sudden death in the horses. This picture actually shows the location of the eustachian tube. You can see behind the mandibles and below the ear, guttural pouch is formed. In this picture, you can see this is a left guttural pouch and this is right guttural pouch. So you can see the accumulation of pus, incipitated hard pus formation in this pouch. So this is called as guttural pouch empyema. This slide shows the condition of purpura hemorrhagica. You know that widespread hemorrhages occur in purpura hemorrhagica. So you can see in intestine hemorrhages, widespread hemorrhages in whole intestine, in whole mesentery. You can see in the palates hemorrhages. You can see in legs hemorrhages. And also I was telling that this purpura hemorrhagica may be mild enough or may be severe enough to cause death. So here you can see the sloughing of the skin, exudation of the serum, severe sloughing of the skin. It is also a case of purpura hemorrhagica, a severe case. In this case also there is huge edematous condition of the limbs or any body parts. In purpura hemorrhagica, due to exudation of the fluid, there is edematous condition, painful edematous condition of the limbs, particularly the hind limbs. But it can occur anywhere in whole body. So other than hemorrhages, there is edematous condition in purpura hemorrhagica. Now, some clinical pathology laboratory test for which we can see in case of strangles. When blood is taken, we can see that the blood picture showing leukocytosis, and particularly this leukocytosis that is increase in the number of WBC is due to increase in the number of neutrophils. The neutrophil amount is highly increased. Other than neutrophils, protein, particularly the fibrinogen, they are also increased in the blood. Fibrinogen and overall all the proteins are increased in the blood picture. So it is clinical pathology. And you know that in necropsy, what you can see the pus formation everywhere in the visceral organs, particularly in the bastard strangles where death usually occurs. In that case, if you do autopsy, you'll see suppuration. I mean pus formation in the internal organs, anywhere, even in the brain, even all the lymph nodes, all the visceral organs. In complicated case, there will be pus formation. Since Streptococcus is as an important pus forming organism, and also I have said you that septicemia is very rare. Septicemic sign usually do not occur in uh, this case. And this is the last slide where I will deal with diagnosis. So clinical signs are enough, suggestive enough for the diagnosis. When you see thick creamy pus oozing out from the lymph nodes, strained coughing, strained breathing, it will give you a highly suggestion for the strangles in horses. Other than history and clinical science, the other way is to make culture. You have to culture it by taking samples from the nasal swabs or the abscess from the lymph nodes. So, or even you can wash the nasopharyngeal region. Usually, it is washed 3 times during its treatment to get rid of the bacteria. So we can take swabbing from this area and culture accordingly, and it is the gold standard method for diagnosis of the bacteria. Most common and the gold standard method. Nowadays, you are using molecular approaches. That is PCR technique. It is more sensitive, no doubt, and it detects what it detects this AIM protein, that virulence factor, ACM protein, or simply AIM proteins, which is an anti-phagocytic protein. So this PCR detects ACM protein of the uh, bacteria. This picture usually show you about the uh, preventive measures. So when you are going to buy a horse, keep it in quarantine, do its blood test. If it is negative, test again after 2 weeks later. If it's become positive, then you can allow it in the herd. If it is positive, then you have to further investigate using PCR and culture. Retest, test, treat it, retest it, and after treatment and retest, if you see the case become negative, then only it is allowed to enter inside the herd. So this all was all about strangles. So